Imagine you're 7 months pregnant, glowing with excitement for your baby shower in a picture-perfect suburban home. But then, a chilling discovery: your overly helpful mother-in-law has been slipping you vitamins that are actually poison, making you dizzy, anxious, and questioning your sanity. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. What if your loving husband, the successful lawyer, is living a double life, cheating with a cunning mistress who's masterminding a plot to steal your unborn child through fake paternity tests, forged custody papers, and a web of lies that could destroy everything? As Sarah uncovers betrayal after betrayal, from embezzlement to murder plots, you'll be gripped by twists that shock to the core. Who forged the documents? What's the real truth about the baby? And can Sarah fight back before it's too late? This story of resilience, revenge, and raw family drama will keep you hooked till the end. Stay tuned for every heart-pounding detail. If this has you on the edge already, smash that like button if you're Team Sarah. Comment below what you'd do in her shoes. Share this with a friend who loves juicy thrillers. And subscribe with notifications on so you never miss another epic tale like this. Let's dive in. Sarah Mitchell smoothed her hands over her 7-month pregnant belly as she arranged the last of the baby shower decorations in her suburban kitchen. The soft pink and gold balloons bobbed gently in the afternoon breeze from the open window, creating the perfect backdrop for what should have been one of the happiest days of her life. "Oh, honey, you should not be doing all this work in your condition," Eleanor Mitchell said as she bustled into the kitchen carrying another box of party supplies. Sarah's mother-in-law had been incredibly helpful over the past few weeks, almost too helpful. Every morning, Eleanor arrived with fresh prenatal vitamins, homemade meals, and endless advice about pregnancy. "I feel fine, Eleanor. Really," Sarah replied, though she had been feeling unusually tired lately. "Besides, this is my first baby shower. I want everything to be perfect." Eleanor's smile seemed forced as she began unpacking delicate china teacups. "Of course, dear. You know I just want what's best for you and my grandchild. David would never forgive me if something happened to either of you." The mention of her husband made Sarah's heart flutter with happiness. David had been working long hours at his law firm lately, but he always made time to ask about the baby and her doctor appointments. Their marriage felt stronger than ever, especially with Eleanor's constant support during this crucial time. "Speaking of David, where is he today?" Sarah asked, and glancing at the clock. "He promised to be here before the guests arrive." "Oh, you know how demanding his caseload is," Eleanor said quickly. "He texted me saying he might be a few minutes late. Something about a client emergency." Sarah nodded, used to David's unpredictable schedule. As a successful corporate lawyer, he often had to drop everything for important clients. It was one of the sacrifices they had made for their comfortable lifestyle in their beautiful colonial home in the suburbs. The doorbell rang, and Sarah's best friend Maya Santos swept in with an armload of beautifully wrapped presents. Maya was everything Sarah sometimes wished she could be: confident, independent, and running her own successful marketing consultancy. They had been friends since college, and Maya was one of the few people who knew about Sarah's own marketing background before she had given up her career to be a full-time wife. "Sarah, you look absolutely glowing," Maya said, embracing her carefully. "How are you feeling? Any morning sickness still?" "Actually, I have been having some strange symptoms lately," Sarah admitted. "Nothing serious, just feeling more anxious than usual. My heart races sometimes, and I have trouble sleeping. Dr. Roberts says it is normal for this stage of pregnancy, but it feels different than what I expected." Eleanor appeared beside them with a small pill container. "Here, sweetie, take your afternoon vitamin. Dr. Roberts specifically recommended these ones for the third trimester. They will help with those anxiety symptoms." Sarah accepted the vitamin gratefully. Eleanor had been so thoughtful about remembering her medication schedule. The pills were different from her usual prenatal vitamins, larger and a different color, but Eleanor insisted they were specially formulated for women in their final trimester. As more guests arrived, Sarah found herself feeling increasingly lightheaded. The room seemed to spin slightly when she turned her head too quickly, and her heart was racing again. She excused herself to use the bathroom, hoping a few minutes of quiet would help her feel better. In the bathroom mirror, she noticed her pupils looked dilated, and her hands had a slight tremor. These symptoms were definitely not normal pregnancy side effects. Something was not right, but she could not put her finger on what. The baby shower continued without incident, though Sarah found it difficult to concentrate on the conversations around her. Every time someone asked about her symptoms, Eleanor quickly changed the subject or offered another explanation about pregnancy hormones. After the guests left, Sarah helped Eleanor clean up while they chatted about baby names and nursery decorations. As Eleanor gathered her purse to leave, something caught Sarah's eye. A small prescription bottle had fallen out of the purse onto the kitchen counter. "What is this?" Sarah asked, picking up the bottle. Her name was clearly printed on the label, but the medication was something called lorazepam, a name she did not recognize. Eleanor's face went pale. "Oh, that is nothing, dear. Just some old medication. I must have grabbed the wrong purse." But Sarah was reading the label more carefully. The prescription was dated just 2 weeks ago, and the signature at the bottom was supposed to be hers, except it looked nothing like her handwriting. "Eleanor, I never signed for this medication. I do not even know what lorazepam is." "You must be confused, honey," Eleanor said, reaching for the bottle. "Pregnancy brain. You know. You probably just forgot." Sarah pulled up her phone and quickly searched for lorazepam. Her blood ran cold as she read the results. It was an anti-anxiety medication that could cause drowsiness, confusion, and heart palpitations. The exact symptoms she had been experiencing. "Eleanor, this is a prescription anxiety medication. I have never been prescribed anything like this. Where did this come from?" Her mother-in-law's expression shifted, becoming defensive. "I have no idea what you are talking about, Sarah. You are obviously under a lot of stress. Maybe you should call Dr. Roberts about these memory problems." But Sarah was not backing down. Something was very wrong here, and she was going to find out what. The prescription bottle clearly had her name on it, but she had never seen it before in her life, and that signature was definitely not hers. As Eleanor hurried out the door, making excuses about being late for another appointment, Sarah stared at the mysterious prescription bottle in her hands. Her heart was racing again, but this time it was not from medication. It was from fear. Who had forged her signature? Why was Eleanor carrying around medication with Sarah's name on it? And most importantly, what else was Eleanor not telling her about these special vitamins she had been taking every day? Sarah's hands trembled as she realized that the person she had trusted most during her pregnancy might be the very person putting her and her baby in danger. The next morning, Sarah could not shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She had barely slept, turning the mysterious prescription over and over in her mind. When David left for work without his usual kiss goodbye, claiming he was late for an important meeting, Sarah knew she had to take action. She called Dr. Roberts' office and scheduled an emergency appointment, claiming she was having unusual symptoms. The receptionist squeezed her in for that afternoon, and Sarah spent the morning researching lorazepam and its effects on pregnant women. What she found made her stomach turn. Lorazepam could cause serious complications during pregnancy, including breathing problems for the baby and withdrawal symptoms after birth. No responsible doctor would prescribe this medication to a pregnant woman unless it was a life-threatening emergency. At the doctor's office, Sarah handed over the prescription bottle with shaking hands. "Dr. Roberts, I found this medication with my name on it, but I never received a prescription from you or anyone else. I am worried someone has been giving me this without my knowledge." Dr. Roberts examined the bottle carefully, his expression growing more concerned by the minute. "Sarah, this is definitely not something I would prescribe to a pregnant patient. Let me run some blood tests to see if there are any traces of this medication in your system." While waiting for the test results, Sarah decided to do some detective work of her own. The prescription had been filled at a pharmacy near David's law firm, which seemed like an odd coincidence. She drove to the pharmacy and asked to speak with the pharmacist who had filled the prescription. "I remember this prescription," the young pharmacist said, checking his computer records. "It was called in by someone claiming to be Dr. Robert's office, but when I tried to verify it, the phone number did not match our records. The person who picked it up was an older woman with gray hair. She said she was your mother." Sarah's heart sank. Eleanor was not her mother, and Dr. Roberts had confirmed he never prescribed this medication. Someone had been systematically drugging her, and all signs pointed to her mother-in-law. But why would Eleanor want to hurt her? They had always gotten along well, and Eleanor seemed genuinely excited about becoming a grandmother. Nothing made sense. As Sarah drove home, she decided to take a detour past David's office building. Maybe she could surprise him with lunch and talk about her disturbing discovery. Their marriage was built on honesty and trust. Surely David would help her figure out what was going on. She parked across the street from the gleaming office tower and was about to call David when she saw him emerge from the building. But he was not alone. A young woman with dark hair and a figure-hugging dress walked beside him, her hand resting intimately on his arm. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she watched her husband lean down to whisper something in the woman's ear, making her laugh and look up at him with obvious adoration. They walked to a nearby upscale restaurant, and Sarah found herself following them like a character in a spy movie. Through the restaurant's large windows, Sarah had a perfect view of David and the mysterious woman settling into a corner booth. The woman was beautiful, much younger than Sarah, with perfect makeup and an expensive handbag. She looked like everything Sarah used to be before she gave up her career to become a housewife. Sarah's hands trembled as she watched David reach across the table to touch the woman's face tenderly. This was not a business lunch or a casual meeting with a colleague. This was clearly an intimate relationship that had been going on for some time. Rain began to fall as Sarah stood on the sidewalk, watching her husband's betrayal unfold in slow motion. She pressed her hands against her pregnant belly, feeling the baby kick as if sensing her distress. 7 months pregnant, and her husband was having an affair with another woman. The woman leaned forward and kissed David passionately, right there in the middle of the restaurant where anyone could see them. David did not pull away or look uncomfortable. Instead, he smiled and kissed her back like this was the most natural thing in the world. Sarah felt dizzy and nauseous, but she could not look away. She needed to see this, needed to understand exactly what was happening to her life. The rain was coming down harder now, soaking through her jacket, but she stood frozen on the sidewalk. Her phone buzzed with a text message from David. "Working late tonight. Do not wait up. Love you." The lie was so casual, so automatic, that Sarah realized this affair had probably been going on for months. How many times had David claimed to be working late when he was actually with this woman? How many times had Sarah waited at home, preparing dinner for a husband who was never coming? She watched them order wine and settle in for what was clearly going to be a long, romantic lunch. The woman kept touching David's hand and laughing at everything he said. David looked happier and more relaxed than Sarah had seen him in months. As she stood there in the rain, Sarah overheard part of their conversation through the open restaurant door. The woman was talking about traveling to Europe together, and David was promising to make arrangements soon. "What about your wife?" the woman asked, her voice carrying clearly across the nearly empty restaurant. David's response made Sarah's blood run cold. "Do not worry about Sarah. The baby problem will be solved soon, and then we can be together without any complications." The baby problem? Her pregnancy was nothing more than a problem to be solved. Sarah stumbled backward, her mind reeling. David's affair was bad enough, but what did he mean about the baby problem being solved soon? Was he planning to leave her after the baby was born? Or was there something more sinister happening? Suddenly, the mysterious medication made perfect sense. Eleanor was not acting alone. She was helping David. They were drugging Sarah for some reason related to the baby. Maybe they wanted her to miscarry, or maybe they were planning something even worse. Sarah's phone rang, and Eleanor's name appeared on the screen. She answered with shaking hands. "Hello, dear. How are you feeling today?" Eleanor's voice was sickeningly sweet. I am fine, Sarah lied, watching David through the restaurant window. Just running some errands. Make sure you take your afternoon vitamin when you get home. It is very important to stay on schedule with your medication. The word medication made Sarah's skin crawl. Eleanor was not even trying to hide it anymore. Of course, Sarah said. I will take it as soon as I get home. As she hung up the phone, Sarah realized she was completely alone. Her husband was betraying her with another woman. Her mother-in-law was poisoning her, and she was 7 months pregnant with nowhere to turn. But as she stood there in the rain, watching the two people who were supposed to love her most plotting her downfall, Sarah felt something she had not experienced in years, pure, focused anger. She was not going to be a victim. She was going to fight back. Sarah spent the rest of the day in her car, following David and his mistress as they moved from the restaurant to a small apartment building across town. She watched them disappear into the building together, confirming her worst fears about the depth of their relationship. By the time she returned home that evening, Sarah had made a decision. She was going to confront Eleanor and demand the truth about the medication. But first, she needed to be smart about gathering evidence. She carefully photographed the prescription bottle from every angle, including the forged signature and the pharmacy label. Then she called Maya. Maya, I need your help with something, and I need you to promise not to think I am crazy. Sarah, what is wrong? You sound terrible. Sarah told Maya everything, the mysterious medication, David's affair, and her suspicions about Eleanor. To her relief, Maya did not question her sanity or suggest she was overreacting. We need to get you and the baby to a doctor immediately, Maya said. If someone has been drugging you for weeks, there could be serious health consequences. I already had blood work done today. Dr. Roberts is supposed to call with the results tomorrow morning. Good. In the meantime, do not take any more of those vitamins Eleanor has been giving you. And Sarah, start documenting everything. Take pictures, save text messages, record conversations if you can. You are going to need evidence. That night, David came home around 11, claiming he had been stuck in meetings all day. Sarah pretended to be asleep, but she watched him through half-closed eyes as he moved around their bedroom. He seemed nervous, checking his phone frequently and avoiding looking at her. When Eleanor arrived the next morning with her usual cheerful demeanor and daily vitamins, Sarah was ready. Good morning, Eleanor. How was your evening? Oh, just quiet at home. You know how it is at my age. Eleanor began her usual routine of organizing vitamins and preparing Sarah's breakfast. Did you take your evening medication yesterday? Yes, Sarah lied, watching Eleanor's face carefully. Though I have been wondering about these new vitamins. They look different from my regular prenatal vitamins. Eleanor's smile faltered slightly. Dr. Roberts specifically recommended these for the final trimester. They have extra nutrients for brain development. At that moment, Sarah's phone rang. Dr. Roberts' office was calling with her blood test results. Mrs. Mitchell, I need you to come in immediately, the nurse said. Your blood work shows dangerous levels of lorazepam, and Dr. Roberts is very concerned about the effects on your baby. Sarah put the phone on speaker, making sure Eleanor could hear every word. But I have never been prescribed lorazepam, Sarah said loudly. How could it be in my system? Eleanor's face went white, and she began backing toward the kitchen door. Mrs. Mitchell, someone has been giving you this medication without your knowledge. You need to come in right away so we can monitor the baby's condition and discuss next steps. Sarah hung up the phone and turned to face Eleanor, who was now visibly shaking. Eleanor, I know what you have been doing. I found the prescription bottle. I talked to the pharmacy, and now I have proof that you have been drugging me for weeks. Sarah, I can explain. Explain you have been poisoning me while I am pregnant. Do you have any idea what this could do to my baby? Eleanor collapsed into a kitchen chair, her composed facade finally cracking. I never wanted to hurt the baby. You have to believe me. Then why would you do this to me? Through tears, Eleanor began to confess. David came to me 6 weeks ago. He said you were becoming unstable. that you were having mood swings and making threats. He was worried about your mental health affecting the baby. Sarah stared at her in disbelief. That is completely untrue. I have never had any mental health issues. He said you needed help, but that you would never agree to see a therapist or take medication. He asked me to help by giving you something to calm your anxiety. So you have been putting lorazepam in my vitamins? Eleanor nodded miserably. David got the prescription somehow. He said it was just temporary, just until after the baby was born. He promised it would not hurt you or the baby. Eleanor, this medication can cause serious birth defects and breathing problems for newborns. David is a lawyer. He had to know the risks. I trusted him, Eleanor whispered. He is my son. I thought he was trying to protect his family. Sarah felt her legs give out, and she sank into a chair across from Eleanor. The betrayal was even deeper than she had imagined. David had not just been having an affair. He had been systematically drugging her with his mother's help. Why now, Eleanor? Why are you telling me this now? Eleanor looked up with red, swollen eyes. Because yesterday David told me about the custody papers. Sarah's heart stopped. What custody papers? He is planning to have you declared mentally incompetent due to drug use during pregnancy. He already has a lawyer working on it. The plan is to take the baby away from you after birth and claim you are an unfit mother. The room spun around Sarah as the full scope of the conspiracy became clear. David was not just having an affair. He was planning to steal her baby. The medication was not meant to hurt the baby. It was meant to create evidence of Sarah's supposed mental instability and drug use. There is more, Eleanor continued, her voice barely a whisper. The woman David has been seeing, Jessica, she has been helping him plan this. She works at his law firm as a paralegal, and she has been researching custody law and mental health statutes. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. How long have you known about Jessica? A few months. David told me he was unhappy in the marriage and that he had found someone who understood him better. He said Jessica was supportive of his career in ways that you never were. The accusation stung because Sarah knew there was some truth to it. She had given up her own marketing career to support David's ambitions, but apparently that sacrifice was not enough. What else, Eleanor? What else have you been hiding from me? Eleanor hesitated, then reached into her purse and pulled out a small recording device. David asked me to record our conversations, she admitted. He said if you ever accused him of anything, he would need proof that you were paranoid and delusional. Sarah stared at the device in horror. Her own mother-in-law had been secretly recording their private conversations for weeks, gathering evidence to use against her in a custody battle. Eleanor, do you understand what you have done? You have helped David build a case to take my baby away from me based on lies and manufactured evidence? I know, Eleanor sobbed. I thought I was helping my family stay together. David said if we could get you the help you needed, everything would work out. The help I needed, Eleanor. The only help I needed was protection from my husband and his mistress. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message from David. How are you feeling today? Make sure to take your vitamins. She showed the message to Eleanor. Is this part of the plan too? Making sure I stay drugged until you can execute your custody scheme? Eleanor nodded reluctantly. David wants to make sure there's enough medication in your system to show up on drug tests after the baby is born. Sarah felt nauseated as the full horror of the situation sank in. David and Jessica had orchestrated an elaborate plan to frame her as an unfit mother using Eleanor's help and medical evidence of drug use that they had created themselves. Eleanor, I need you to help me now. I need you to help me stop this. I cannot go against David. He is my son, and I am carrying your grandchild. Do you really want your grandchild to grow up believing their mother was a drug addict who abandoned them? Eleanor looked conflicted, torn between loyalty to her son and the growing realization that she had been part of something terrible. There is something else you need to know, Eleanor said finally. Something even David does not know. Sarah braced herself for another devastating revelation. The baby, Eleanor whispered. There is something about the baby that changes everything. Sarah's blood ran cold as she waited for Eleanor to continue. After everything she had learned in the past 24 hours, she was not sure she could handle another devastating revelation. What about the baby? Eleanor. Eleanor's hands shook as she reached into her purse again, this time pulling out a manila envelope. I have been keeping these medical records from you. David made me promise never to show them to you. Sarah opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside were copies of ultrasound reports and genetic testing results that she had never seen before. The dates showed they had been conducted during her routine appointments with Dr. Roberts, but somehow the results had never made it to her. I do not understand, Sarah said, scanning the technical medical language. What am I looking at? The paternity test results, Eleanor said quietly. David insisted on having them done during your 20-week ultrasound. He told Dr. Roberts he needed them for insurance purposes. Sarah's heart stopped. Paternity test. Why would David need a paternity test? He is the father. Eleanor's expression was pained. That is what I thought too. But David had doubts. He said there were times in your marriage when you had been distant, when you had worked late with male colleagues. He convinced himself that you might have had an affair. That is ridiculous. I have never been unfaithful to David. Never. I know that now, Eleanor said. But look at the results. Sarah found the page with the paternity test conclusions. According to the genetic analysis, there was a 99.9% probability that David Mitchell was not the biological father of her baby. The paper slipped from Sarah's hands as the implications hit her like a physical blow. If David was not the father, then who was? She had never been with anyone else during their marriage. This had to be a mistake. Eleanor, this cannot be right. I have never been with anyone except David. There has to be an error in the testing. That is what I told David, Eleanor said. But he was convinced the results were accurate. That is when he started planning to leave you and take the baby. He said if the child was not his biological offspring, he wanted nothing to do with either of you. Sarah's mind raced as she tried to make sense of the information. The timeline of David's affair with Jessica suddenly made more sense. He had started pulling away from her right around the time she would have been 20 weeks pregnant, exactly when these test results would have come back. But Eleanor, if David does not think he is the father, why would he want custody of the baby? Eleanor's expression grew even more troubled. Because Jessica convinced him that keeping the baby would give him more power over you. She said if he could prove you were an unfit mother, he could use the custody case to destroy your reputation and take everything in the divorce. The cruelty of the plan was breathtaking. David and Jessica were not just trying to steal her baby. They were trying to destroy her entire life out of spite and revenge for a betrayal that had never actually happened. Sarah grabbed her phone and called Dr. Roberts' office, demanding to speak with him immediately about the paternity test results. Dr. Roberts, I need to know about genetic testing that was supposedly done on my baby. My mother-in-law has results that I never received. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Mrs. Mitchell, I think there has been some confusion. We never conducted any paternity testing on your baby. Your husband did request it, but you would have needed to sign consent forms, which you never did. Sarah's hands began to shake. Then where did these results come from? I have no idea. Any legitimate paternity test would require samples from both parents and proper chain of custody procedures. What you are describing sounds like fabricated documents. Sarah hung up the phone and turned to Eleanor with new understanding. The paternity results are fake. David and Jessica created false medical records to justify their plan. Eleanor looked stunned. But David showed them to me weeks ago. He was so upset about the results. Eleanor, think about it. David is a lawyer. He has access to legal document templates and knows how to make paperwork look official. They created fake paternity test results to manipulate you into helping them. The realization that she had been deceived by her own son hit Eleanor like a physical blow. She sank deeper into her chair, looking older and more fragile than Sarah had ever seen her. I helped them destroy an innocent woman and her baby based on lies, Eleanor whispered. We can still stop this, Sarah said urgently, but I need your help. I need you to tell me everything. Every conversation, every plan, every detail about what they are planning to do next." Eleanor nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. Jessica has been researching judges who are sympathetic to fathers' rights cases. They plan to file for emergency custody as soon as the baby is born, claiming you are a danger due to drug use and mental instability. What about the affair? Does Jessica know about all of this? Jessica is the mastermind, Eleanor admitted. She convinced David that you were holding him back from his true potential. She made him believe that you were jealous of his success and that you had trapped him with an unwanted pregnancy. Sarah felt anger building in her chest. Jessica had systematically destroyed her marriage by feeding David lies and insecurities, then helped him create an elaborate scheme to steal her baby and ruin her life. Eleanor, I need you to help me gather evidence against them. Can you get me copies of their text messages, emails, anything that shows they planned this together? I can try, Eleanor said. David has been careless about leaving his phone around when he visits me, and Jessica has sent me messages about coordinating their story. Sarah's phone buzzed with another text from David. Looking forward to dinner tonight. Hope you are feeling better. She showed the message to Eleanor. He is still pretending to be a loving husband while plotting to destroy me. What are you going to do? Eleanor asked. Sarah stood up, feeling more determined than she had in months. I am going to fight back. But first, I need to make sure my baby is safe from whatever they have planned next. As if summoned by their conversation, Sarah heard a car pulling into the driveway. Through the window, she saw a young woman with dark hair getting out of a silver sedan, the same woman she had seen with David at the restaurant. Eleanor, is that Jessica? Eleanor peered through the window and nodded grimly. She said she might stop by today to discuss final preparations. Sarah's heart raced as she realized Jessica was about to walk into her home, probably expecting to find Eleanor alone and a drugged, compliant Sarah. Hide in the pantry, Sarah whispered to Eleanor. I want to hear what she has to say when she thinks I am not listening. Eleanor hesitated. Sarah, be careful. Jessica is not what she seems. She is much more dangerous than you realize. The doorbell rang, and Sarah took a deep breath. It was time to meet her husband's mistress face to face and find out exactly what they had planned for her and her baby. But as Sarah walked toward the front door, Eleanor called out one last warning that made her blood run cold. Sarah, there is one more thing you need to know about Jessica. She has done this before. Sarah froze with her hand on the doorknob. What do you mean she has done this before? I will explain later, Eleanor whispered urgently. Just be careful what you say to her. Sarah opened the door to find Jessica Romano standing on her front porch, looking exactly like the polished professional she had appeared to be at the restaurant. Up close, she was even more beautiful than Sarah had realized, with perfect makeup and an expensive designer handbag. Mrs. Mitchell, I am Jessica Romano from your husband's law firm. I have some important legal documents that require your immediate attention. Sarah's heart pounded, but she forced herself to remain calm. Of course, please come in. Jessica entered the house with the confidence of someone who believed she held all the cards. She carried a leather briefcase and moved through Sarah's living room as if she had been there many times before. Is Eleanor here? Jessica asked, looking around. She was supposed to meet me here to witness your signature on these documents. She stepped out for a moment, Sarah lied. What kind of documents are these? Jessica opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of legal papers. These are custody and mental health evaluation forms. David is concerned about your well-being during the final weeks of your pregnancy, and he wants to make sure appropriate medical supervision is in place. Sarah scanned the papers quickly, her marketing background helping her understand the legal language. These were not protective custody arrangements. They were documents that would essentially sign away her parental rights and commit her to psychiatric evaluation. Jessica, these papers would give David full custody of my baby and authorize involuntary mental health treatment. Why would I sign something like this? Jessica's smile became predatory. Because, Sarah, We have evidence of your drug use during pregnancy, documented mental instability, and concerning behavior that puts both you and the baby at risk. What evidence? Jessica pulled out a tablet and began showing Sarah photos and videos. There were pictures of Sarah looking disheveled and confused, all taken during the weeks when she had been unknowingly drugged. There were recordings of conversations where her speech was slurred or her responses seemed inappropriate. We also have testimony from Eleanor about your erratic behavior, threats of self-harm, and refusal to follow medical advice. Jessica continued. Sarah realized with growing horror that every symptom caused by the secret medication had been carefully documented and would now be used as evidence against her. This is all fabricated, Sarah said. You and David have been drugging me to create this so-called evidence. Jessica laughed coldly. That is exactly the kind of paranoid delusion that supports our case for your mental incompetence. Who is going to believe that your loving husband and devoted mother-in-law conspired to drug you? It sounds like the ravings of someone with postpartum psychosis. I am not postpartum yet, Sarah pointed out, but you will be soon. And when you are, these documents will ensure that your baby is protected from an unstable mother. Sarah's hands clenched into fists as she realized how thoroughly they had planned this attack on her sanity and credibility. Every aspect of the scheme was designed to make her look paranoid and delusional if she tried to defend herself. What do you want from me? Jessica, sign the papers. Sarah, make this easy on everyone. David will make sure you get the help you need, and the baby will be raised in a stable, loving home. A home with you. I suppose. Jessica's mask slipped slightly, revealing the calculating woman underneath. David and I are planning a future together. Yes, we can provide the kind of life this child deserves. Financial security, educational opportunities, and parents who are committed to each other. Parents, you are not this baby's parent. I will be when David and I marry next month, Jessica said casually. Sarah felt like she had been punched in the stomach. Next month, but we are still married. The divorce papers will be filed as soon as you sign these custody documents. David has already moved most of his belongings out of the house. I am surprised you have not noticed. Sarah's mind raced as she realized she had been so focused on the pregnancy and Eleanor's visits that she had not paid attention to David's belongings, gradually disappearing from their shared spaces. You have been planning this for months, Sarah said. Actually, we have been planning this for almost a year, Jessica admitted. David was never happy in this marriage. Sarah, he just needed time to figure out how to leave without destroying his reputation or losing his financial assets. So you helped him create a plan to frame me as an unfit mother. I helped him find a solution that would protect everyone's interests, Jessica corrected. You get the mental health treatment you clearly need. The baby gets a stable home environment, and David gets to move on with his life. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message. Maya was asking how her doctor's appointment had gone and whether she was okay. Sarah quickly typed back, call the police. Jessica Romano is in my house with fake legal documents. Jessica noticed Sarah texting and held out her hand. I will need to hold on to your phone while we complete these documents. We cannot have you contacting people who might interfere with this process. I am not giving you my phone. Jessica's expression hardened. Sarah, you can make this easy or difficult, but either way, these documents are going to be signed today. David has already filed a preliminary custody motion with the court, claiming you are a danger to yourself and your unborn child. Sarah's heart sank as she realized the legal machinery was already in motion. Even if she could prove the medication had been given to her without her knowledge, the court case would take months to resolve, months during which her baby could be taken away from her. There is something else you should know, Jessica continued, pulling out her own phone. We have been documenting your behavior on social media as well. She showed Sarah a series of Facebook posts and Instagram photos that made Sarah look increasingly unstable over the past several weeks. In the photos, Sarah appeared disheveled, confused, or inappropriately emotional. The captions suggested erratic mood swings and concerning statements about her pregnancy. I never posted any of these, Sarah said. Eleanor has been managing your social media accounts to create a comprehensive record of your declining mental state, Jessica explained. Your friends and family are already concerned about your behavior based on these posts. Sarah grabbed her laptop and logged into her social media accounts. Sure enough, there were dozens of posts she had never written, photos she had never shared, and comments that made her sound paranoid and unstable. Her phone started ringing with calls from worried friends and family members who had seen the posts. Sarah realized that Jessica and Eleanor had not only been building a legal case against her, they had been systematically destroying her reputation and relationships. Answer the phone, Jessica instructed. Let them hear how you sound. Your slurred speech and confused responses will only support our documentation. Sarah was trapped. If she answered the calls, the lingering effects of the medication would make her sound exactly like the unstable person they were claiming she was. If she did not answer, her friends and family would assume the social media posts were accurate and that she was having a breakdown. The doorbell rang again, and Sarah heard Maya's voice calling her name. Relief flooded through her. Maya had gotten her message and come to help. Do not answer that door, Jessica said sharply. You cannot keep me prisoner in my own home, Sarah replied, walking toward the front door. Jessica grabbed her arm. Actually, Sarah, I can... The preliminary custody order includes a provision for medical supervision if you become agitated or pose a risk to the baby. She pulled out another document that Sarah had not seen before, a court order signed by a judge, authorizing temporary restriction of Sarah's movements and activities pending a full mental health evaluation. Sarah stared at the official-looking paper in disbelief. The legal system was being used as a weapon against her, and she was powerless to stop it. Maya's voice came through the door again, more urgent this time. Sarah, are you okay? I am calling the police if you do not answer. Jessica smiled coldly. Go ahead and answer the door. Sarah, let your friends see you in your current state. It will only reinforce our case about your need for intervention. Sarah realized she was facing an impossible choice. Every option would be used against her in the custody battle that was apparently already underway. But as she stood there, trapped between Jessica's threats and Maya's concern, Sarah heard Eleanor's voice from the kitchen. Actually, Jessica, there is something you do not know about Sarah's current state. Eleanor emerged from the kitchen with a determined expression that Sarah had never seen before. In her hands, she carried a thick folder and what appeared to be recording equipment. Eleanor, what are you doing? Jessica demanded. You are supposed to be helping me get Sarah's signature on these documents. I have been helping you and David for weeks, Eleanor said quietly, but I just discovered something that changes everything. Jessica's confident demeanor faltered slightly. What are you talking about? Eleanor opened the folder and spread several documents across Sarah's coffee table. Financial records from David's law firm, bank statements, credit card bills, and evidence of embezzlement. Sarah moved closer to examine the papers, her heart racing with new hope. The documents showed a pattern of unauthorized transfers from client trust accounts into David's personal accounts, dating back almost 2 years. Where did you get these? Sarah asked. David has been careless about leaving his briefcase at my house, Eleanor explained. Yesterday, after you confronted me about the medication, I decided to look through his papers more carefully. Jessica lunged for the documents, but Eleanor stepped back. I have already made copies, Jessica, and I have recorded every conversation we have had about framing Sarah for drug use and mental instability. You recorded our conversations. Jessica's voice rose with panic. Eleanor held up a small digital recorder. David asked me to record Sarah's supposedly erratic behavior, but I also decided to record my conversations with you and David about your plans for the custody case. Sarah felt a surge of hope for the first time in days. Eleanor, what exactly is on those recordings? Everything, Eleanor said firmly. Jessica discussing how to fabricate evidence of Sarah's drug use. David explaining how to manipulate court documents. Jessica bragging about destroying Sarah's social media reputation. And most importantly, both of them admitting that the paternity test results were falsified. Jessica's face went white. Eleanor, you do not understand the legal consequences of what you are doing. David is your son. David stopped being my son the moment he asked me to help him destroy an innocent woman and steal her baby, Eleanor replied. What we have done to Sarah is unforgivable. Maya's voice came through the door again, more insistent this time. Sarah, I am coming in. I have keys from when I watched your house last summer. The front door opened, and Maya stepped inside, immediately taking in the tense scene in the living room. Behind her were two police officers, responding to her call about a possible domestic situation. Officers, thank goodness you are here, Jessica said quickly, switching into professional mode. This woman is having a mental health crisis, and we are trying to get her the help she needs. One of the officers, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, looked around the room carefully. Ma'am, we received a call about possible harassment and fraudulent legal documents. Can someone explain what is happening here? Sarah took a deep breath, praying that the medication had cleared enough from her system for her to speak clearly. These people have been systematically drugging me for weeks and fabricating evidence to steal my baby. I have proof. She handed the officer the prescription bottle with the forged signature and Eleanor's folder of financial documents. This medication was being given to me without my knowledge, Sarah explained. The prescription is forged, and my mother-in-law has admitted to putting it in my vitamins. Eleanor stepped forward. Officer, I need to confess to my role in this conspiracy. I have been helping my son and this woman drug Sarah and create false evidence for a custody case. Jessica tried to interrupt, but the second officer held up his hand. Ma'am, let her finish, Eleanor continued. I have recordings of our conversations about fabricating mental health records, falsifying paternity test results, and manipulating social media accounts to make Sarah appear unstable. She handed over the digital recorder and the folder of financial documents. I also discovered that my son has been embezzling money from his law firm's client accounts. The female officer examined the prescription bottle carefully. Mrs. Mitchell, when was the last time you took this medication? I stopped taking the vitamins yesterday when I discovered what was in them, Sarah said. My doctor can confirm that I never consented to any psychiatric medication. Jessica made one last desperate attempt to control the narrative. Officers, this woman is clearly having paranoid delusions. The custody documents I brought are legitimate court orders designed to protect her and her baby. The officer examined Jessica's paperwork. Ma'am, these documents have several irregularities. The judge's signature does not match our database, and the case number does not exist in our court system. Sarah felt relief wash over her as she realized Jessica's fake legal documents were falling apart under scrutiny. Maya stepped forward with her own evidence. Officers, I have been Sarah's friend for over 10 years. The social media posts that appeared on her accounts over the past month are completely out of character for her. I suspected someone else was posting them. The police spent the next hour taking detailed statements from everyone present. Eleanor provided her recordings, which clearly documented the conspiracy between David and Jessica. Sarah gave blood and urine samples to prove she had been drugged without her knowledge. When the officers finally left, Jessica was in handcuffs, charged with fraud, harassment, and conspiracy. Warrants were being issued for David's arrest on charges of embezzlement and domestic abuse. But Sarah's relief was short-lived. As she sat in her living room, surrounded by the evidence of her husband's betrayal, the financial reality of her situation began to sink in. Maya, what am I going to do? Sarah asked. David has been stealing money from his law firm. When that comes out, we will lose everything. The house, our savings, our insurance, it is all connected to his employment. Maya examined the financial documents Eleanor had provided. Sarah, this is worse than we thought. David has not just been embezzling from the firm. He has been taking cash advances on credit cards in your name and borrowing against your house without your knowledge. Sarah's hands shook as she realized the full scope of David's financial crimes. How much debt are we talking about? Over $200,000, Maya said quietly, and most of it is in your name. Sarah felt like the floor was dropping out from under her. She was 7 months pregnant. Her husband was a criminal, and she was apparently responsible for massive debts she had never authorized. I cannot afford a lawyer to fight this, Sarah said. I cannot even afford to keep this house once David's salary stops coming in. Eleanor spoke up from the corner where she had been sitting quietly. Sarah, I have some money saved. I can help you with legal fees. Eleanor, I appreciate the offer, but I cannot take money from you after everything that has happened. You have to let me help, Eleanor insisted. I participated in destroying your life. The least I can do is help you rebuild it. Sarah's phone rang, and Dr. Roberts' office number appeared on the screen. With everything that had happened, she had forgotten about her medical appointment. Mrs. Mitchell, we need you to come in immediately, the nurse said. Your blood work shows some concerning levels that require monitoring, and we need to discuss the effects of the unauthorized medication on your baby. Sarah hung up the phone and looked around her living room, the same room where she had planned her baby shower just days ago, when she still believed she had a loving husband and a secure future. Now she was facing single motherhood, crushing debt, potential health complications for her baby, and the complete destruction of the life she had built over the past 5 years. But as she sat there, surrounded by the wreckage of her marriage, Sarah felt something unexpected determination. Maya, I need you to help me with something, Sarah said. I want to find out everything I can about Jessica Romano. Eleanor said she has done this before, and I want to know what that means. Maya nodded. I can run a background check through my business contacts. What are you thinking? I am thinking that if Jessica has destroyed other women's lives, there might be other victims who want justice. And if David has been embezzling money for 2 years, there might be other clients who have been hurt by his crimes. Eleanor looked up with renewed hope in her eyes. Sarah, are you saying you want to fight back against them? Sarah placed her hands on her pregnant belly, feeling her baby kick with what seemed like encouragement. I am saying I am done being a victim. It is time to make sure David and Jessica can never do this to anyone else. But even as she made this declaration, Sarah had no idea that David's crimes were about to be exposed in a way that would change everything, and that her biggest challenge was still ahead of her. Dr. Amanda Chen's office was nothing like Sarah had expected. Instead of the sterile, clinical environment she had imagined, the space felt warm and welcoming, with soft lighting and comfortable furniture that made her feel safe for the first time in weeks. Sarah, I want you to know that everything we discuss here is completely confidential, Dr. Chen said as they settled into chairs facing each other. Maya explained some of what you have been through, but I would like to hear it in your own words. Sarah took a deep breath and began telling her story from the beginning. The mysterious medication, David's affair, Eleanor's confession, and the discovery of the elaborate conspiracy to steal her baby. As she spoke, she realized how surreal it all sounded. I know this probably sounds like paranoid delusions, Sarah said. That is exactly what they were counting on. Dr. Chen leaned forward with genuine concern. Sarah, what you are describing is a form of psychological abuse called gaslighting. It is designed to make you question your own perception of reality. The fact that you were able to recognize the manipulation and gather evidence shows remarkable mental strength. But I feel like I am falling apart, Sarah admitted. I keep second-guessing everything I think I know. What if I really am unstable? What if I imagine some of this? That is a normal response to sustained psychological manipulation, Dr. Chen explained. When someone systematically undermines your trust in your own perceptions, it creates lasting self-doubt. But Sarah, you have physical evidence of what happened to you. Blood tests proving you were drugged. Recordings of their confessions. Financial documents showing fraud. These are not delusions. Sarah felt tears of relief streaming down her face. For weeks, she had been questioning her own sanity as her world fell apart around her. Having a professional validate her experience felt like a lifeline. Dr. Chen, I need to ask you something that might sound strange. Before all of this happened, I thought I was happy in my marriage, but looking back, I can see patterns of behavior that I ignored or made excuses for. Does that make me naive? Dr. Chen smiled gently. Sarah, recognizing unhealthy patterns in hindsight does not make you naive. It makes you human. Many intelligent, capable women find themselves in relationships with manipulative partners. The key is what you do with that awareness moving forward. Over the next hour, Dr. Chen helped Sarah examine her relationship with David from a new perspective. She recognized how he had gradually isolated her from her career and friendships, making her financially dependent on him. She saw how he had undermined her confidence in subtle ways, making her doubt her own judgment. I gave up my marketing career when we got married, Sarah said. David convinced me that his work was more important and that I would be happier focusing on our home and future family. How did you feel about that decision at the time? Sarah paused, remembering. I was excited about being a wife and mother, but I also felt like I was losing part of myself. I had worked so hard to build my career, and I was good at what I did, but David made me feel selfish for wanting both. What was your career like before marriage? I was a marketing director for a mid-sized technology company. I specialized in digital campaigns and brand development. I loved the creativity and strategy involved in building brands from the ground up. Dr. Chen made a note. Sarah, those skills, strategic thinking, creative problem solving, brand building, those are exactly the tools you are going to need to rebuild your life. For the first time in months, Sarah felt a spark of her old confidence returning. She had been so focused on being the perfect wife and mother that she had forgotten she had valuable skills and experience. Dr. Chen, do you think it is possible for me to start over at 32, with a baby and massive debts? I think it is not only possible, but necessary for your emotional health and your child's future. You need to reclaim your identity and your independence. They spent the rest of the session developing a practical plan for Sarah's immediate future. Dr. Chen recommended support groups for victims of domestic abuse, legal aid resources for the custody and financial issues, and strategies for managing the stress of single parenthood. As Sarah left the therapy office, she felt more clear-headed than she had in weeks. The fog of confusion and self-doubt was lifting, replaced by a sense of purpose she had not felt since her career days. Maya was waiting in the parking lot with coffee and a thick folder of papers. I have news about Jessica Romano, and you are not going to believe what I found. They sat in Maya's car while she spread out printouts of newspaper articles, court documents, and background check results. Jessica Romano is not her real name, Maya began. Her legal name is Jessica Romanoff, and she has been operating under false identities for the past 5 years. Sarah studied the documents with growing amazement. What do you mean, false identities? She is wanted for fraud in 3 different states. The pattern is always the same. She targets successful married men, seduces them, then helps them steal assets from their wives through fake legal documents and manufactured custody cases. Maya showed Sarah a newspaper article from Ohio. 2 years ago, she was involved in a case where a woman named Linda Harrison lost custody of her 2 children after Jessica and Linda's husband claimed Linda was mentally unstable due to drug use. Sarah's blood ran cold. Did they drug Linda too? According to this follow-up article, yes. Linda eventually proved that her husband had been putting medication in her food, but by then she had lost her house, her children, and her savings. The husband and Jessica disappeared before they could be prosecuted. What happened to Linda? Maya's expression was grim. She committed suicide 6 months later. The stress of losing her children and fighting false criminal charges destroyed her. Sarah felt sick to her stomach. Jessica and David were not just criminals. They were destroyers of lives who left devastated families in their wake. There is more, Maya continued. I found similar cases in Michigan and Florida. Different names, same pattern. Jessica finds men with assets and wives who can be manipulated or discredited, then helps orchestrate elaborate schemes to steal everything. How many women has she done this to? At least 6 that I could find, and probably more. Sarah, you are not just fighting for your own life. You might be the key to getting justice for all of Jessica's victims. Sarah studied the photos of the other women Jessica had targeted. They were all around her age, educated, financially comfortable women who had trusted the wrong people, women who had believed in their marriages and never suspected they were being systematically destroyed. Maya, I want to contact these other women, the ones who survived. Maybe together we can build a case that will put Jessica away forever. I was hoping you would say that, Maya said with a smile. I already reached out to two of them. They are willing to share their stories and cooperate with law enforcement. As they drove back to Sarah's house, she felt energized in a way she had not experienced since before her pregnancy. The therapy session had reminded her of her own capabilities, and Maya's research had given her a sense of purpose beyond her own situation. But when they pulled into Sarah's driveway, they found Eleanor standing on the front porch with a terrified expression and a police officer beside her. Sarah, thank God you are here, Eleanor called out. There is something else about David's embezzlement, something much worse than we thought. The officer approached Sarah's car as she got out. Mrs. Mitchell, I am Detective Rodriguez. We need to discuss some developments in your husband's case that affect your safety and the safety of your baby. Sarah's heart sank as she realized their investigation into David and Jessica had uncovered something even more dangerous than she had imagined. What kind of developments? Sarah asked. Detective Rodriguez glanced at Eleanor, then back at Sarah. Mrs. Mitchell, we have reason to believe your husband and Jessica Romano were planning more than just custody fraud. We found evidence suggesting they were planning to harm you physically after your baby was born. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She had thought the worst thing David could do was steal her baby and destroy her reputation. She had never imagined he might actually want to hurt her. What kind of evidence? Maya demanded. Text messages between your husband and Jessica discussing ways to make your death look like a postpartum suicide? Detective Rodriguez said. They were planning to use your supposed mental health issues and drug use to make it appear that you had harmed yourself. Sarah's legs gave out, and Maya caught her before she fell. The conspiracy was not just about stealing her baby and her assets. It was about eliminating her completely. Eleanor stepped forward with tears in her eyes. Sarah, I had no idea they were planning to hurt you. I swear I thought they just wanted custody of the baby. Detective Rodriguez continued. We need to place you in protective custody immediately. Your husband posted bail this morning, and we have not been able to locate him or Jessica. Sarah looked around at the home she had shared with David for 5 years, realizing she would probably never feel safe there again. Everything she had built her life around was gone. Her marriage, her financial security, her sense of safety. But as she stood there, surrounded by the people who were trying to protect her, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. Detective Rodriguez, I do not want protective custody. I want to help you catch them. Detective Rodriguez stared at Sarah in disbelief. Mrs. Mitchell, these people were planning to kill you. Protective custody is not optional. It is necessary for your safety and your baby's safety. I understand the danger, Sarah said firmly, but hiding will not solve this problem. David and Jessica will just disappear like they did in those other states, and they will find new victims to destroy. Maya stepped forward. Sarah, you are 8 months pregnant. This is not the time to play detective. I am not playing detective, Sarah replied. I am thinking like a marketer. Jessica and David have a pattern of behavior, which means they are predictable. They will make mistakes because they think they are smarter than everyone else. Eleanor looked confused. Sarah, what are you proposing? Sarah turned to Detective Rodriguez. How long do you think it will take them to realize I'm not at home anymore? They are probably watching the house. I would guess they already know you are not inside. Good. Then they will be trying to figure out where I went and what I know about their plans. Detective Rodriguez was beginning to understand Sarah's thinking. You want to draw them out. I want to give them an opportunity to incriminate themselves further. Right now, you have evidence of fraud and conspiracy, but if they actually attempt to harm me, you will have attempted murder charges that will stick in any state. Maya shook her head vigorously. Sarah, this is insane. You are risking your life and your baby's life. Maya, they are not going to stop until I am dead. Even if I hide for months, they will eventually find me. Jessica has been doing this for years. She knows how to disappear and resurface with new identities. Eleanor spoke up quietly. There is something else you should know about their plans. Something I heard David discussing on the phone with Jessica yesterday. Detective Rodriguez turned his attention to Eleanor. What did you hear? David was talking about a life insurance policy. He increased Sarah's coverage to $500,000 3 months ago. Jessica was saying they needed to wait until after the baby was born to implement their final plan, because a pregnant woman's death would attract too much attention. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. David had been planning her murder for months, carefully timing it to maximize their financial gain and minimize suspicion. Detective Rodriguez, how many other women has Jessica killed? Sarah asked. We are investigating several suspicious deaths connected to her previous schemes. Linda Harrison was not the only victim who allegedly committed suicide after losing custody battles. Sarah's resolve strengthened. Then you understand why I have to help you stop her. I might be the first woman who figured out what she was doing before it was too late. Detective Rodriguez considered Sarah's proposal carefully. Mrs. Mitchell, if we were to consider using you as bait, it would have to be under extremely controlled circumstances with multiple layers of protection. Asi, what did you have in mind? We could set up a scenario where it appears you have returned home alone and vulnerable. We would wire the house with surveillance equipment and position officers nearby. If David and Jessica attempt to break in or harm you, we would have everything recorded. Maya grabbed Sarah's arm. This is way too dangerous. What if something goes wrong? Maya, something has already gone wrong. My husband tried to steal my baby and then planned to kill me. I can either spend the rest of my life running from people like this, or I can help make sure they can never hurt anyone else. Eleanor stepped forward with a determined expression. I want to help with the plan. Everyone turned to look at her in surprise. Eleanor, you have already done enough, Sarah said gently. No, I have not done nearly enough to make up for what I helped them do to you. David and Jessica used me to hurt you, and now I want to use my relationship with them to help catch them. Detective Rodriguez was intrigued. What did you have in mind, Mrs. Mitchell? David still trusts me, at least partially. He thinks I am just a foolish old woman who got scared and confessed to protect myself. I could contact him and tell him that Sarah is back at the house alone and feeling suicidal. Sarah understood the logic of Eleanor's plan. If David thinks I am having a breakdown and might hurt myself, he and Jessica might see it as the perfect opportunity to stage my suicide. It is risky, Detective Rodriguez admitted, but it might be our best chance to catch them in the act. Maya was still shaking her head. I cannot believe we are seriously considering this. Sarah, you are about to have a baby. You should be focused on staying safe, not catching criminals. Maya, if I do not stop them now, I will never be safe. They will keep coming after me until they succeed, and other women will suffer the same fate as Linda Harrison. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. We know you talked to the police. This does not have to end badly for you or the baby. Call me. Jay. She showed the message to Detective Rodriguez. Jessica is already trying to negotiate. That means they are getting desperate. Or they are planning something immediate, Detective Rodriguez countered. Mrs. Mitchell, I need you to understand that if we proceed with this plan, there is no guarantee we can protect you if something goes wrong. Sarah looked around at the faces of the people who were trying to keep her safe. Maya, her loyal friend who had risked everything to help her. Eleanor, who had found the courage to confess her role in the conspiracy. Detective Rodriguez, who was willing to consider an unusual plan to catch dangerous criminals. Detective, what happens if we do not catch them now? They will probably leave the state within the next 24 hours. Jessica has fake identities prepared, and David has access to cash from his embezzlement. They will disappear and start over somewhere else. And the other women Jessica has hurt, they will never get justice, and Jessica will keep destroying families until someone stops her. Sarah made her decision. Then we do this, but I want Maya somewhere safe. And I want Eleanor to be protected too. Detective Rodriguez nodded. We will set up the operation for tonight. Eleanor will contact David and tell him you are alone and vulnerable. We will have the house wired for sound and video, with officers positioned to respond immediately. As they began planning the details of the operation, Sarah felt a familiar sensation in her lower abdomen. The baby was moving more actively than usual, as if responding to her elevated stress levels. Detective Rodriguez, what happens if I go into labor during this operation? We will have paramedics standing by. Mrs. Mitchell, are you sure you want to take this risk? Sarah placed her hands on her belly and thought about all the women Jessica had destroyed. She thought about Linda Harrison, who had lost everything and taken her own life rather than continue fighting. She thought about the children who had been separated from their mothers based on lies and manufactured evidence. I am sure, Sarah said, but there is one more thing we need to discuss. What happens after we catch them? Detective Rodriguez looked confused. What do you mean? I mean, what happens to me? I'm about to be a single mother with massive debts and no income. Catching David and Jessica does not solve my financial problems. Maya spoke up. Sarah, we will figure that out later. Right now, we need to focus on keeping you alive. But Eleanor had been thinking about the same issue. Sarah, there might be a way to recover some of your losses. The life insurance policy David took out on you, the money he embezzled from his firm, the assets he hid, if we can prove it was all part of the conspiracy, you might be able to reclaim a significant amount. Sarah had not considered the possibility of financial recovery. She had been so focused on survival and justice that she had not thought about rebuilding her life after the crisis was over. Eleanor, do you know where David hid the money he stole? I have some idea. He mentioned offshore accounts and cryptocurrency investments. Jessica was helping him move assets where they would be difficult to trace. Detective Rodriguez made a note. Mrs. Mitchell, financial recovery will depend on how much evidence we can gather during tonight's operation. If we can get David and Jessica to incriminate themselves fully, it will be much easier to reclaim stolen assets. As the afternoon wore on and the plans for the evening operation took shape, Sarah felt a strange sense of calm settling over her. For the first time in weeks, she was not just reacting to other people's schemes, she was taking control of her own destiny. But as the sun began to set and the time for the operation approached, Sarah received another text message that changed everything. Sarah, this is Linda Harrison. I am not dead. I need to talk to you before you go through with this plan. Sarah stared at her phone in shock. Detective Rodriguez, we have a problem. I just received a text from Linda Harrison. Detective Rodriguez looked confused. That is impossible. Linda Harrison died by suicide 18 months ago. Sarah showed him the message. Well, either she faked her death, or someone is using her identity to manipulate us. Maya grabbed the phone and read the message. Sarah, this could be a trap. Jessica and David might be trying to throw you off balance before tonight's operation. But Eleanor was studying the message more carefully. The phone number has an Ohio area code. That is where Linda Harrison lived. Detective Rodriguez immediately called his contacts in Ohio law enforcement. After several tense minutes, he hung up with a stunned expression. Linda Harrison is alive, he said. She faked her suicide to escape Jessica and her husband. She has been hiding under a false identity for over a year. Sarah's phone rang, and she answered it with trembling hands. Sarah, this is Linda Harrison. I know this is confusing, but I need to warn you about what you are planning to do tonight. Linda's voice was tired but determined. She explained how she had staged her own death after realizing that Jessica and her ex-husband were planning to kill her for real. I had to disappear completely, Linda said. It was the only way to protect myself and my children. But I have been tracking Jessica ever since, trying to gather evidence to stop her. Linda, we are planning to catch her and David tonight. Can you help us? Sarah, that is exactly what I am calling about. Jessica knows you are planning something. She has contacts in law enforcement who have been feeding her information about your case. Detective Rodriguez grabbed the phone. Ms. Harrison, this is Detective Rodriguez. What kind of contacts are you talking about? Jessica has been bribing police officers and court officials for years. It is how she has been able to manipulate custody cases and avoid prosecution. She probably knows about your operation already. Sarah felt her heart racing as she realized their carefully planned trap might be walking into an ambush instead. Detective Rodriguez, we need to call off the operation, Maya said urgently. But Sarah was thinking like a marketer again, analyzing the situation from all angles. Wait, if Jessica knows about our plan, then she has to make a choice. She can either run away again, or she can try to eliminate the threat permanently. What are you thinking? Detective Rodriguez asked. I am thinking that Jessica has invested too much time and effort in this scheme to just walk away. She needs to silence me and Linda to protect herself. Linda's voice came through the phone speaker. Sarah, Jessica has killed people before. She is not going to hesitate to kill you if she feels cornered. Then we need to change the plan, Sarah said. Instead of trying to trap her, we need to give her exactly what she wants. Detective Rodriguez looked skeptical. What does she want? She wants me dead in a way that looks like suicide. So we give her that opportunity, but we make sure she incriminates herself completely in the process. Sarah began outlining a modified plan that would use Jessica's expectations against her. Instead of waiting for David and Jessica to come to the house, Sarah would appear to be having a breakdown and threaten to harm herself unless she could speak to David one last time. If Jessica thinks I am suicidal and desperate, she might get overconfident and reveal more about their plans. Sarah explained. Linda's voice was worried. Sarah, that is incredibly dangerous. If Jessica realizes you are faking the breakdown, she will know it is a trap. But if she believes it, she might confess to everything she has done, thinking I will be dead soon anyway. Detective Rodriguez was considering the modified plan when Sarah suddenly doubled over in pain. Sarah, what is wrong? Maya asked urgently. I think I am having contractions, Sarah gasped. The baby is coming early. Eleanor immediately went into nurse mode, timing Sarah's contractions and checking her vital signs. These are not false labor pains. Sarah, you are going into active labor. Detective Rodriguez called for an ambulance while Maya tried to keep Sarah calm. Sarah, we need to get you to the hospital. The operation will have to wait. But as Sarah was helped into the ambulance, she realized this unexpected development might actually work in their favor. Detective Rodriguez, follow us to the hospital. If David and Jessica think I am in labor and vulnerable, they might make their move tonight. At the hospital, Dr. Roberts confirmed that Sarah was in early labor, several weeks before her due date. Mrs. Mitchell, the stress you have been under has likely triggered premature labor. We need to monitor you and the baby carefully. As Sarah was settled into a labor and delivery room, Detective Rodriguez coordinated with hospital security to set up surveillance equipment and position officers nearby. Eleanor called David to inform him that Sarah was in labor and asking for him. David, she is very emotional and saying she wants to apologize for everything. She seems to think she imagined the whole conspiracy. Sarah could hear David's response through Eleanor's phone. I will be there as soon as I can. Do not leave her alone. Maya held Sarah's hand as another contraction hit. Sarah, are you sure you want to go through with this while you are in labor? Maya, this might be our only chance. If David and Jessica think I am helpless and focused on the baby, they might let their guard down completely. Over the next several hours, Sarah's labor progressed slowly while they waited for David and Jessica to arrive. Linda Harrison flew in from Ohio and was briefed on the hospital operation by Detective Rodriguez. I want to confront Jessica myself, Linda said. She destroyed my life and separated me from my children. I need her to know that I survived. When David finally arrived at the hospital around midnight, he was alone. He appeared genuinely concerned about Sarah and the baby, which made her question whether he was really capable of the violence she had been warned about. Sarah, I am so sorry about everything that has happened, David said, taking her hand. I know I made mistakes, but I never wanted to hurt you or the baby. For a moment, Sarah almost believed him. This was the man she had married, the father of her child. Maybe Jessica had been manipulating him too. But then Jessica appeared in the doorway, and Sarah saw the cold calculation in her eyes. "Hello, Sarah," Jessica said sweetly. "How are you feeling? David was so worried about you and the baby." Sarah decided to test how much they knew about the police investigation. "Jessica, I am glad you are here. I need to apologize for the things I said to the police. I think the medication made me paranoid and confused." Jessica's eyes lit up with satisfaction. "Sarah, that is exactly what David and I have been trying to tell everyone. The stress of pregnancy and the medication interactions caused you to imagine things that were not real." "I know that now," Sarah said, playing her role perfectly. "I feel terrible about accusing you and Eleanor of drugging me. I can see how that would sound crazy to anyone who heard it." David squeezed her hand. "Sarah, we just want to help you get better. After the baby is born, we can work together to make sure you get the support you need." Jessica moved closer to Sarah's bedside. "Sarah, have you told anyone else about your paranoid thoughts? We want to make sure we can address any lingering concerns." Sarah realized Jessica was trying to find out how much the police knew and who else might be involved in investigating them. "I only talked to the police and Maya," Sarah said, "but I told them I was confused and that I wanted to drop any charges." Jessica and David exchanged a look that Sarah recognized as relief mixed with calculation. "That is good, Sarah," Jessica said, "because David and I have been thinking about how to help you move forward after the baby is born." As Jessica began explaining their plan for Sarah's future, which sounded disturbingly like the suicide scenario Detective Rodriguez had described, Sarah felt another strong contraction. "The baby is coming," she gasped, and suddenly the room filled with medical staff preparing for delivery. In the chaos of Sarah's labor, Detective Rodriguez and Linda Harrison positioned themselves to hear Jessica and David's conversation in the hallway. What they heard would provide the final evidence needed to put Jessica away forever. Sarah's daughter entered the world at 3:47 a.m., 6 weeks early but healthy and strong. As Dr. Roberts placed the tiny baby in Sarah's arms, she felt an overwhelming surge of love and determination. This beautiful child was the reason she had fought so hard, and Sarah was going to make sure her daughter grew up knowing the truth about her strength. "She is perfect," Maya whispered, tears streaming down her face as she watched Sarah cradle her newborn daughter. Eleanor stood quietly in the corner, her own eyes filled with tears of joy and regret. "Sarah, she looks just like you did when you were born." David approached the bedside hesitantly. "Sarah, she is beautiful. What are you going to name her?" Sarah looked down at her daughter's peaceful face. "Hope. Her name is Hope." Jessica remained near the doorway, checking her phone frequently. Sarah noticed she seemed agitated and kept glancing toward the hallway. "David, we should let Sarah rest," Jessica said. "She has been through a lot, and the baby needs quiet time." But Sarah was not ready to let them leave yet. Detective Rodriguez had instructed her to keep them talking as long as possible while recording equipment captured their conversation. "Jessica, I want to thank you for everything you have done to help David during this difficult time," Sarah said, her voice carefully modulated to sound grateful rather than suspicious. Jessica's expression softened slightly. "Sarah, I just want what is best for your family. David loves you and the baby very much." "I know he does," Sarah replied, "and I understand now that my accusations were just pregnancy hormones and stress talking. I am embarrassed about the things I said to the police." David sat down beside the hospital bed. "Sarah, we do not need to talk about that now. You should focus on recovering and bonding with Hope." But Jessica seemed eager to continue the conversation. "Actually, Sarah, it might be good to clear the air completely. What exactly did you tell the police about us?" Sarah recognized this as Jessica's attempt to assess the threat level and plan her next moves accordingly. "I told them I thought you and Eleanor were drugging me, and that David was having an affair," Sarah said, "but I also told them I was confused and that I wanted to withdraw any complaints." Jessica relaxed visibly. "That is good, Sarah, because those accusations could have caused serious legal problems for David's career." "I realize that now," Sarah said. "Jessica, can I ask you something? How did you and David meet? Sarah was fishing for information that might help build the case against Jessica, but she also genuinely wanted to understand how her marriage had been destroyed. Jessica smiled, apparently enjoying the opportunity to discuss her relationship with David. We met when I started working at his law firm last year. David was going through a difficult time, feeling unappreciated at home and unfulfilled in his personal life. Sarah felt a stab of pain at the casual way Jessica described the destruction of her marriage, but she forced herself to remain calm. I can understand that, Sarah said. I know I was not always the most supportive wife. My career was important to me too. David looked uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Sarah, that is not true. You were always supportive, but Jessica was warming to her theme. David, it is okay to be honest. Sarah knows she made mistakes too. The important thing is that we can all move forward now. What do you mean, move forward? Sarah asked. Jessica glanced at David, then back at Sarah. Well, David and I have been discussing the future. We think it would be best for everyone if you focused on your recovery and let us help with the baby during the transition period. Sarah's heart raced as she realized Jessica was describing the custody plan they had developed. Even now, in the hospital room with Sarah holding her newborn daughter, Jessica was still plotting to steal the baby. What kind of transition period? Sarah asked. Just until you are feeling more stable, Jessica said quickly. David could take temporary custody while you get the mental health treatment you need. Maya stepped forward from the corner where she had been quietly listening. I am sorry, but did you just suggest that Sarah is mentally unstable and needs to give up custody of her baby? Jessica's mask slipped slightly. I just think Sarah has been under a lot of stress, and new mothers sometimes need extra support. From their husband's mistress, Maya asked pointedly. The room fell silent as the pretense finally cracked. David looked shocked at Maya's blunt statement, while Jessica's face hardened with anger. Maya, you are obviously not understanding the situation, Jessica said coldly. I understand it perfectly, Maya replied. You seduced a married man, helped him embezzle money from his law firm, drugged his pregnant wife, and planned to steal her baby. Did I miss anything? David stood up abruptly. Maya, that is enough. You are clearly upset, but you do not know what you are talking about. At that moment, Detective Rodriguez entered the room with two uniformed officers. Actually, Mr. Mitchell, we know exactly what we are talking about, Detective Rodriguez said. Jessica Romano, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and multiple counts of identity theft. Jessica tried to run, but the officers blocked her path to the door. As they handcuffed her, she turned to David with desperation in her eyes. David, tell them this is all a misunderstanding. Tell them about Sarah's mental health issues. But David was staring at Detective Rodriguez in confusion. Murder? What are you talking about? Detective Rodriguez pulled out a tablet and played a recording of Jessica's voice. We need to make sure it looks like postpartum depression. If she dies within 6 months of giving birth, everyone will assume it was suicide. David's face went white as he heard Jessica discussing plans for Sarah's death, as if she were discussing the weather. Jessica, what is this? We never talked about hurting Sarah. David, you are an idiot, Jessica snapped, her sweet facade completely gone. How did you think this was going to end? Sarah was never going to just give up her baby and disappear quietly. Sarah watched her husband's face as he realized the woman he had betrayed his family for was a cold-blooded killer who had been manipulating him from the beginning. Detective Rodriguez, David said quietly, I want to cooperate fully with your investigation. I had no idea Jessica was planning to hurt anyone. As Jessica was led away in handcuffs, she turned back to Sarah with pure hatred in her eyes. This is not over. There are others like me, and they will find you eventually. But Linda Harrison stepped into view from the hallway. Actually, Jessica, it is over. It is. The FBI has been building a case against your entire network for months. Your contacts in law enforcement have already been arrested. Jessica's expression crumbled as she realized her carefully constructed criminal enterprise was falling apart completely. After the police left with Jessica, Sarah was alone with David for the first time since learning about his betrayal. Baby Hope slept peacefully in her arms, oblivious to the drama surrounding her birth. "Sarah, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness," David said. "I made terrible choices, and I hurt you in ways I can never undo." Sarah looked at the man she had once planned to spend her life with. "David, why did you do this to us?" David sat down heavily, looking older than his 35 years. "I was unhappy and scared. My law practice was struggling. We had debt I had not told you about, and I felt like I was failing at everything. When Jessica came along and made me feel successful and desired, I convinced myself I deserved to be happy. So you decided to destroy my happiness instead." "I never meant for it to go this far," David said. "Jessica told me you were having an affair, that the baby might not be mine. She showed me fake evidence and convinced me you were plotting against me." Sarah realized that David had been manipulated by Jessica just as she had been, though he bore responsibility for the choices he had made. "David, what happens now?" "I am going to plead guilty to the embezzlement charges and cooperate with the investigation into Jessica's other crimes. I will probably go to prison for several years." Sarah looked down at Hope, who was beginning to stir. "And what about our daughter?" "Sarah, I want you to have full custody. I want you to be free to build a new life for yourself and Hope. I will sign whatever papers you need." Eleanor stepped forward from where she had been standing quietly by the window. "Sarah, I know this does not make up for what I did, but I want to help you financially. I have savings that can help you get back on your feet." Sarah considered Eleanor's offer. The older woman had been manipulated too, but she had also found the courage to confess and help catch the real criminals. "Eleanor, I would appreciate help with childcare when I go back to work, but I want to support myself and Hope," Maya smiled. "Actually, Sarah, I have a proposal about that. I want you to become my business partner. Your marketing skills and my client base could build something amazing together." For the first time in months, Sarah felt hopeful about the future. She had lost her marriage and her financial security, but she had gained something more valuable, the knowledge that she was strong enough to survive anything and build a new life from the ground up. As the sun rose over the hospital parking lot, Sarah held her daughter close and made a promise. Hope would grow up knowing that her mother was a survivor who had fought for justice and built a successful life through determination and resilience. But as Sarah was preparing to leave the hospital 3 days later, a nurse handed her a package that had been delivered with no return address. Inside was a single photograph of Jessica with another man Sarah did not recognize, and a note that read, "She did this to someone else before. You are not her first victim, and you will not be her last. Be careful who you trust." Sarah showed the package to Detective Rodriguez, who had become a regular visitor during her hospital stay. "Detective, is Jessica part of something bigger than we realized?" Detective Rodriguez examined the photograph carefully. "Mrs. Mitchell, we are discovering that Jessica was part of an organized network that targets wealthy families across multiple states. This case is going to be much larger than we initially thought." Sarah looked down at Hope, who was sleeping peacefully in her carrier. "What does that mean for us?" "It means you might be called to testify in multiple trials over the next few years. But it also means that your courage in standing up to Jessica has helped us crack open a criminal organization that has been destroying families for decades." As Sarah carried her daughter out of the hospital and into their new life, she realized that her story was not ending. It was just beginning. She had survived the worst betrayal imaginable and emerged stronger than ever. Sarah looked at her beautiful daughter and whispered, "We are going to help other women. Are not we, sweetheart? We are going to make sure nobody else goes through what we went through." Hope opened her eyes and seemed to focus on her mother's face with what looked like determination. Sarah smiled. She had a feeling her daughter was going to be just as strong as her mother, and together they were going to build something beautiful from the ashes of their old life. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in months, Sarah was excited to find out what came next. But as she strapped Hope into her car seat for the drive to their new apartment, Sarah noticed a car following them from the hospital parking lot. Her heart raced as she realized that Jessica's warning might have been more than just an idle threat. Their fight for justice was far from over, and Sarah had a feeling the most dangerous challenges were still ahead of them.